All right, we're going to finish up chapter 4 today by talking about endosymbiosis. This relates to the origin of eukaryotic cells and helps explain the relationship between um, eukaryotes, archaea, and bacteria, the two prokaryotic groups. Uh, Endosymbiosis simply means two organisms living together, one inside the other. They're symbionts, partnerships, kind of working together. So just to review cell theory, all organisms are made up of one or more cells. All life processes occur within cells, and cells are the smallest living thing. Cells can only come from pre-existing cells, and the uh, two types of cells, the uh, early type are the prokaryotic cells, which have a rigid cell wall, a plasma membrane inside of that, and then a single fluid-filled chamber that contains cytoplasm and has within it one circular chromosome floating in the cytoplasm. The, there are no membrane-bound organelles. There are ribosomes. There may be a flagella. There may be a secreted capsule. There might be little projections outside the cell. But these are very successful, but very small, simple cells. Bacteria and archaea are the two prokaryotic groups. They look similar, but are chemically different and genetically different. The other main type of cell are eukaryotic cells. These cells may or may not have a cell wall. They always have a plasma membrane. And then in their cytoplasm are organelles, always a nucleus. The nucleus always has multiple chromosomes that are not loops. There are ribosomes, but different ribosomes from prokaryotes. And then other membrane-bound organelles, including mitochondria, chloroplasts, endomembrane system, uh, just a different set of or different type of organization. These cells show up very late in the fossil record. They are large, they're complex. Here's another example of plant cells. Um, and so, um, how do we go from prokaryotic cells to eukaryotic cells? Which features occur in all cells? And this is a really important thing. We know really out of these features here, only ribosomes occur in all cells. All cells have DNA, but they don't have a nucleus. And mitochondria also occur in all eukaryotic cells, but not all cells. Um, so, we see that. And when we're talking eukaryotic cells, it's all of the above. We see all of the above. And in particular, we all see mitochondria in all these cells. And these mitochondria always have a similar structure, outer and inner membranes. The inner membrane space is uh, very active metabolic space. There's a fluid in there called the matrix. The um, function of these things is very similar in all organisms. They carry out oxidative metabolism, which is using oxygen to release energy. A unique thing in these is that they have their own DNA, and their DNA is a single small circular chromosome. And these guys use their DNA to make proteins. They have ribosomes in mitochondria, and those ribosomes are different than the ribosomes in the rest of the cell. They're smaller and simpler. It's really unusual. In fact, mitochondria reproduce on their own. They do something called binary fission. They can divide and reproduce. Likewise, chloroplasts seem to have some similarities. It's an organelle that does its own set of chemical reactions. In this case, it's photosynthesis. Likewise, there's two membranes, an outer membrane and an inner membrane. The inner membrane uh, are referred to as these individual kind of button-like structures. Thylakoids are in stacks of granum, and this is where photosynthesis occurs. And these guys also have their own DNA. And it's also a single circular loop of DNA. And they also have ribosomes and are also making their own proteins and reproducing on their own. Well, this is kind of weird. It's really pretty strange. And I want to kind of switch and talk about mutualism. Mutualism is a partnership between different species. These partnerships evolve where mutualism can benefit both species at very little cost. Okay. Successful mutualists give benefits and receive benefits. Here I have a picture of a hollow thorn in an acacia tree that serves as um, a, a nest site for ants. And these ants are mutualists of the tree. The tree feeds the ants, the tree houses the ants, and in return, the ants protect the tree. They remove insect herbivores. They attack large animals. They remove fungi. They actually clear the soil uh, in a certain distance around the plant roots. This seems really weird, but there's lots of mutualists. There are mutualists for virtually all plants because there are fungi that assist the roots in obtaining nutrients and water. These are called mycorrhizal fungi, and they plants that have these that are grown with them are better at extracting um, nutrients, better at extracting water from soil than plants where they are removed. Some plants, like this plant on the left, actually have little chambers for bacteria that can take nitrogen out of the air. The plant has this chamber and it secretes sugar in these little chambers to feed the bacteria that in turn give the plant nitrogen for making proteins and nucleic acids. And then of course there's also mutualist animal pollinators for flowering plants. These animals very efficiently move pollen, the reproductive cells, from one plant to another. That's really important for plants because that allows them, plants are place bound and they have to get their pollen to other plants, very difficult. And so here the animals do that for them. The plants provide nectar and food. The animals are taking their pollen to other plants of the same species. Mutualisms are very common between species when you start looking at them. Humans are champion mutualists. We have all sorts of animals and plants that we partner with, and we've made those animals and plants very, very successful. In return, they give us food. A good example is milk. Many humans are adapted to drink milk their entire life, not just when they're young and nursing, but their entire life. We've genetically adapted to cows and sheep and goats to be able to use their milk as a source of food as adults. There you see Taylor Swift with a milk mustache. Likewise, the most successful humans have used domesticated animals for transport, for farming, for warfare, all sorts of things. And of course, we've really adapted those animals genetically to suit our needs, and the same goes with plants. And so there's been this really specific mutualism between us and animals where we're working together, co-evolved, and adapted to the other. Um, in some ways, mitochondria strongly resemble prokaryotic cells. They have the same kind of chromosome. They have a similar ribosome. They have similar gene sequences. They're roughly about the same size, and they're capable of doing binary fission. We think eukaryotic cells arose from a partnership between two cells where one cell came to live inside the other cell. We now call it an organelle, but we believe that previously these were free-living cells. The prokaryote cell was engulfed by another cell and survived and thrived within that cell and gave it benefits. We think mitochondria and chloroplasts both evolved this way. Okay, so just like we have a partnership with horses, we think that the modern eukaryote developed from at least two or three different cells living together. Okay, that the mitochondria came was an aerobic bacteria that came to live inside another cell and provided that other cell with ATP. In return, the other cell provided a steady stream of oxygen and organic compounds that could be oxidized. Uh, Chloroplasts are clearly related to blue-green algae. They came to live within plant cells. The plant cells provide them with carbon dioxide, water, and other nutrients. And in return, the chloroplast provides sugars for that plant cell that can then be made into other materials or used as a source of energy. Okay, we're pretty sure of this, and we actually think the nucleus is related to an unknown archaea. The nucleus contains similar proteins to certain archaeas. The proteins that we use to wrap our DNA, called histones, show a lot of similarities, some proteins in archaea. And so we think the modern eukaryote is probably derived from an unknown bacteria, an unknown archaea, and then a proteobacter bacteria and a cyanobacteria. The evidence for this is pretty overwhelming. It has to do with the size of the bacteria, size of mitochondria and chloroplast, the double membrane. They have a single circular chromosome, just like bacteria. They share gene sequences. They reproduce independently of the nucleus by binary fission, like bacteria. Um, they have ribosomes that resemble bacterial ribosomes. And this shouldn't be all that surprising. We know of lots of parasitic or disease organisms that are actually capable of infecting cells. Chlamydia, rickettsia, these are both bacteria that can do this. Tuberculosis bacteria can do this. If the bacteria actually benefited the cell, it would be even more likely that that relationship would persist. And so that's how we think eukaryotes evolved. We think that it's a combination of several cells, and that's where organelles came from. Really interesting ideas, and they've really been valuable in understanding how cells came about.